A Netflix documentary made me realize my entire life was a lie. I should have turned off the documentary when I saw my adoptive mother's maiden name in the credits. But there I was at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, 3 empty wine glasses on my coffee table, watching Stolen Cradles, the Dr. Marcus Webb investigation like it was just another true crime binge. My lesson plans for tomorrow's 5th grade math class lay forgotten on the couch beside me as the narrator's voice droned about fertility fraud in the 1990s. Dr. Webb told Patricia Henley her daughter died during delivery on March 15, 1995, the narrator said, and I felt my stomach drop. What Patricia didn't know was that her perfectly healthy baby girl was being sold to the Morrison family for $75,000 that same day. Morrison. My adoptive mother's maiden name was Morrison. I grabbed the remote, my hands shaking as I rewound 30 seconds. There it was again. March 15, 1995. My birthday. The Morrison family. $75,000. The documentary cut to a woman with graying brown hair and eyes exactly like mine, sitting in what looked like a small kitchen. Patricia Henley has spent the last 28 years mourning a daughter who never died, the text overlay read. 28 years. I was 28. I named her Sarah, Patricia whispered to the camera, tears streaming down her face. I held her for maybe 2 minutes before Dr. Webb said something was wrong. They rushed her away, and 20 minutes later, he came back saying she'd gone into distress and that she was gone. The wine glass slipped from my hand, shattering against my hardwood floor. Red wine spread across the boards like blood, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My name was Sarah. I was born March 15, 1995. My adoptive parents were Linda Morrison Kelly and David Kelly. They'd always told me my birth mother was a teenager who couldn't care for me, that she'd chosen them specifically from dozens of hopeful families. They'd never mentioned Dr. Marcus Webb's name, but as childhood memories flooded back, I remembered hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. My mother's nervous laughter when I asked about the adoption process. The way my dad's jaw clenched whenever I mentioned wanting to find my birth parents. We went through a very private process, my mom had always said. Some things are better left in the past, sweetheart. The documentary continued, showing court documents and testimonies from other families. Dr. Webb had been running his scheme for over a decade, telling desperate mothers their babies had died while selling them to wealthy couples who believed they were participating in legal private adoptions. The investigation had uncovered at least 47 cases, but Webb had died in 2018 before facing trial. I grabbed my laptop and searched for Patricia Henley, my fingers trembling over the keys. Within minutes, I found her Facebook profile. She lived just 2 hours away in Millbrook, worked at a library, and her cover photo was a memorial post from 3 months ago, 28 years without my Sarah. Not a day goes by that I don't wonder what you would have looked like, what your voice would sound like, what your favorite color would be. Purple, I thought automatically. It's purple. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom, don't forget dinner Sunday. Dad's making his famous lasagna. Love you, sweetheart. I stared at the message until the words blurred together, then looked back at Patricia Henley's face on my laptop screen. This woman had been greeting me for my entire life while I'd been living 20 minutes from my childhood home, teaching elementary school and believing I was exactly who I'd always been told I was. Everything was a lie. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on my kitchen floor until dawn, laptop balanced on my knees, diving deeper into the rabbit hole that had swallowed my entire identity. The documentary was just the tip of the iceberg. Online forums dedicated to Dr. Webb's victims painted a picture far worse than what made it to Netflix. Families destroyed. Birth mothers who'd attempted suicide after losing their dead babies. Adoptive parents who discovered the truth years later and lost everything, their children's trust, their marriages, their sanity. At 6:23 a.m., I found a smoking gun buried in a digitized newspaper archive from the Millbrook Gazette, dated April 3, 1995. Local woman seeks answers after infant's mysterious death at Webb Fertility Clinic. The article was barely 3 paragraphs, but it quoted Patricia Henley directly. They wouldn't let me see her body. They said it would be too traumatic, but what mother doesn't want to hold her baby one last time? Dr. Webb rushed the cremation through in less than 24 hours. I don't even have ashes to visit. My coffee mug hit the floor, adding to the wine stain I still hadn't cleaned up. I called in sick to work and drove to the Millbrook Public Library, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The building was small and dated, with that particular smell of old books and industrial carpet cleaner. I spotted Patricia immediately behind the circulation desk, checking in returned novels. She looked exactly like the documentary footage, but seeing her in person was like staring into a funhouse mirror of my own future. Same nose. Same way of tucking hair behind her left ear. Same laugh lines, though hers seemed carved by sadness instead of joy. I pretended to browse the mystery section for 20 minutes, working up the courage to approach her. What do you even say? Hi, I think I'm your dead daughter. Sorry you've been mourning me for 3 decades? By the way, my adoptive parents probably knew they were buying a stolen baby. Before I could decide, she walked past me toward the biography section, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, something floral and light that made my chest tighten with inexplicable familiarity. Excuse me, I heard myself say. Are you Patricia Henley? She turned, and when our eyes met, I watched her face drain of color. Her hand flew to her throat. I'm sorry, she whispered, staring at me like I was a ghost. You look like someone I used to know. I think I am someone you used to know. My voice cracked. My name is Sarah Kelly. I was born March 15, 1995. The book in her hands, a biography of Eleanor Roosevelt, tumbled to the floor with a soft thud that echoed through the quiet library. Patricia gripped the nearest shelf for support. That's not possible, she breathed. My Sarah died. Dr. Webb said. Dr. Webb lied. I pulled up the documentary on my phone, showing her the section about the Morrison family. Linda Morrison is my adoptive mother. I've been living 2 hours away from you my entire life. Patricia's legs gave out. She slid down the bookshelf until she was sitting on the library floor, staring up at me with 28 years of grief and hope and terror written across her face. You have my eyes, she said, and started to cry. That's when I realized exposing Dr. Webb's associates would be the easy part. The hard part would be figuring out how to rebuild a life when everything I thought was true had been purchased for $75,000. I spent 4 hours in that library with Patricia, both of us crying in the biography section while she told me about the daughter she'd mourned. How she'd saved every penny for a proper headstone even though there was no body to mark. How she'd celebrated my birthday alone every March 15th for 28 years, lighting a candle and wondering what kind of cake I would have liked. Chocolate, I whispered when she said it. I've always loved chocolate cake. She laughed through her tears, a sound so similar to my own it made my chest ache. I craved chocolate constantly when I was pregnant with you. Couldn't get enough of it. When the library closed at 6 p.m., we moved to a diner across the street. Patricia ordered coffee she didn't drink and told me about Dr. Webb's clinic. How she'd been 19 and terrified, but Webb had promised her the best care. How he'd insisted on payment up front, $15,000 for the delivery, nearly her entire inheritance from her grandmother. He said it was because of my high-risk status, she explained, stirring sugar into her untouched coffee. Single mother, no insurance, history of anxiety. Made it sound like he was doing me a favor. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Webb hadn't just stolen babies, he'd profited from both ends. Charged desperate birth mothers for high-risk deliveries, then sold their healthy infants to wealthy couples for 5 times the amount. Patricia, I said carefully, I need you to know that my adoptive parents, they might not have known what really happened. Her smile was sad but understanding. The documentary mentioned that. Most of the adoptive families thought everything was legal. They were victims too, in a way. But as I drove home that night, Patricia's phone number saved in my contacts and plans to meet again on Saturday, doubt crept in like fog. My parents had paid $75,000 in 1995, equivalent to about $140,000 today. They'd driven to a clinic 3 hours away when there were perfectly good hospitals in our city. They'd never had any adoption paperwork I could find, despite my childhood requests to see it. Most damning of all, they'd refused every suggestion I'd made about DNA testing or genealogy sites. Some doors are better left closed, my dad always said. When I got home, I called my adoptive sister Emma. 2 years younger and their biological child, she'd always been my closest confidant. Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, you're scaring me. What's wrong? Did Mom and Dad ever say anything weird about my adoption? Anything that didn't make sense? The pause lasted too long. Sarah, why are you asking this? Please, Em. Just answer. There was something. When I was maybe 12, I overheard them fighting about money. Mom was crying, saying something about how they should have asked more questions, how the amount they paid should have been a red flag. Dad kept saying it was too late to change anything, that they just had to protect you. My living room tilted sideways. What amount, Emma? I don't know exactly. But I remember Mom saying 75,000 and no legitimate agency charges that much. After I hung up, I sat in my car outside my childhood home for 2 hours, staring at the yellow house where I'd grown up believing I was loved and wanted and chosen. The motion sensor light kept flickering on and off as I shifted in my seat, and I could see my dad through the kitchen window, probably grading papers at the table where he'd helped me with homework for 12 years. They knew. Maybe not the full scope of Webb's crimes, but they knew something was wrong with my adoption. And they'd chosen to stay silent for 28 years while Patricia grieved a daughter who was sleeping in the bedroom directly above their heads every Christmas morning. The question was, what else were they hiding? I didn't go to Sunday dinner. Instead, I spent the weekend in Patricia's small apartment above a bakery in Millbrook, looking through photo albums she'd kept of the daughter she thought was dead. Baby clothes she'd bought but never used. A small wooden box containing the hospital bracelet they'd put on her wrist, the only proof I'd ever existed in her world. I wrote you letters, she said, pulling out a shoebox from her bedroom closet. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time something happened that I wanted to share with you. 28 years of letters to a dead daughter. I opened one dated March 15th, 2010, my 15th birthday, and had to stop reading after the first line. Dear Sarah, I hope wherever you are, you know that you're loved. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my parents asking where I was, if I was okay, why I wasn't answering. Emma called 6 times. I turned it off. By Monday morning, I'd made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff. I was going to confront Dr. Webb's surviving associates. The documentary had only scratched the surface. Patricia had given me a box of documents she'd collected over the years, newspaper clippings, court filings, names of other families who'd been through Webb's clinic. Most importantly, she had a business card for Dr. Webb's former partner, Dr. James Rothfield, who'd somehow avoided prosecution and was still practicing obstetrics in Burlington. He claimed he didn't know what Webb was doing, Patricia explained, but he signed half the falsified death certificates. No one investigated him properly because Webb died before he could testify. I called in sick again and drove to Burlington, armed with a fake appointment under the name Sarah Morrison. My adoptive mother's maiden name felt appropriate for what I was about to do. Dr. Rothfield's office was sleek and expensive, all glass and chrome that screamed success. The waiting room was filled with pregnant women reading parenting magazines, blissfully unaware they were sitting in the office of a man who'd helped steal dozens of babies. When my fake appointment was called, I found myself face to face with a man in his 70s, silver-haired and kind-eyed, the picture of a trustworthy doctor. If I hadn't known what I knew, I would have liked him immediately. Ms. Morrison, he said, settling behind his desk. What can I do for you today? You can tell me about Dr. Marcus Webb. His face went rigid. I'm sorry? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of myself next to a photo of Patricia. My name is Sarah Kelly. I was born Sarah Henley on March 15, 1995, at Webb's clinic. You signed my death certificate. Dr. Rothfield's hand started shaking. He reached for his desk phone, but I stood up, blocking his path. Before you call security, you should know that I've already contacted the investigative journalist who produced the Netflix documentary. She's very interested in hearing about the associates Webb protected. I don't know what you think you know. I know you signed 43 falsified death certificates between 1993 and 2004. I know you received monthly payments of $5,000 from Webb throughout that period. And I know you're still practicing medicine, which means there are probably more recent cases that haven't been discovered yet. That last part was a bluff, but his reaction told me I'd hit something. His face went pale, and he sank back into his chair. It wasn't supposed to go on that long, he whispered. Marcus said it was just a few cases, desperate families helping each other. He said everyone would be better off. Tell that to Patricia Henley, who's been visiting an empty grave for 28 years. Dr. Rothfield's confession came tumbling out like water through a broken dam. Names, dates, amounts. A network of corrupt officials who'd been paid to look the other way. Recent cases, as recent as 2 years ago. The scope was bigger than anyone knew. And somewhere in Burlington, there were birth mothers still grieving children who were alive and well, living with families who had no idea they'd purchased stolen babies. I recorded everything. Dr. Rothfield didn't notice my phone propped against the tissue box on his desk, camera rolling as he detailed 28 years of medical fraud. By the time he finished talking, I had enough evidence to destroy him and at least 6 other people still working in the medical field. There's a woman in Clearwater, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Maria Santos. Her son would be 2 now. She thinks he died from a heart defect, but he was perfectly healthy. Webb's protege, Dr. Amanda Chen, handled that one. She's running her own practice now, using the same methods. My stomach turned. This wasn't ancient history, it was still happening. How many? I asked. Since Webb died? Maybe a dozen cases. Chen is careful, selective. She only targets women who won't ask too many questions. Undocumented immigrants, teenagers with no family support, women with addiction histories. People society already overlooks. I thought of Patricia, 19 and alone, paying her grandmother's inheritance to a man who stole her child. These monsters had perfected their victim selection over 3 decades. I want names, I said. All of them. Rothfield pulled out a leather appointment book from his desk drawer, hands still trembling. I kept records. Insurance, I guess. In case everything fell apart. As he read off names and dates, I realized the true scope of what I'd stumbled into. This wasn't just about Dr. Webb anymore, it was an entire network that had survived his death and continued operating. Birth mothers grieving children who were alive. Adoptive families who had no idea they were raising stolen babies. And medical professionals who'd been profiting from human trafficking for over 30 years. My phone rang, interrupting Rothfield mid-sentence. Emma's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer that, Rothfield said quickly. If people find out you're here, if they know what you're doing. Who's they? But he'd already clammed up, realizing he'd said too much. The kind, grandfatherly doctor facade slipped back into place. I think this conversation is over, Ms. Morrison. It's Kelly, I said, pocketing my phone. And no, it's not. I spent the drive back to Millbrook calling the number for Maria Santos that Rothfield had given me. It went straight to voicemail, a young woman's voice speaking in accented English, asking callers to leave a message. Maria, my name is Sarah, and I have information about your son. He didn't die. Please call me back. I left my number and immediately felt sick. How do you tell a mother that the child she's been mourning is alive? How do you explain that her grief has been unnecessary, that somewhere a family is raising her baby and has no idea he was stolen? When I got back to Patricia's apartment, she was waiting with coffee and a manila folder thick with documents. I called my lawyer, she said without preamble. Jenny Martinez. She handled my original attempts to investigate Webb back in the 90s. She wants to meet with you. Patricia, there's something else. I showed her the recording of Rothfield's confession, watching her face change as she realized the implications. There are more families, she whispered. More mothers like me. At least 12 since Webb died. Probably more we don't know about. Patricia sank into her kitchen chair, suddenly looking every one of her 47 years. What are we going to do? That's when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll lose more than just the truth about your adoption. I showed Patricia the message, and she immediately double-locked her apartment door. Sarah, she said, her voice tight with fear, I think you should go home. Back to your real family. But that was the problem. I no longer knew which family was real. My adoptive parents, who'd raised me and loved me but had built that love on a foundation of lies they'd suspected for 28 years. Or Patricia, my birth mother, who'd grieved me faithfully but was essentially a stranger. And now, with threatening text messages and an active conspiracy that was still destroying families, I wasn't sure either of us was safe. The threatening text message changed everything. Within an hour of receiving it, Patricia's apartment felt like a prison. We'd drawn all the curtains and were jumping at every creak in the old building. When someone knocked on her door at 9:30 p.m., we both froze. Patricia? It's Jenny Martinez. Your lawyer. Patricia's relief was audible as she unlocked the door. Jenny Martinez was a small woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at us huddled around Patricia's kitchen table and immediately pulled out her phone. I'm calling Detective Ray Hoffman. He worked the original Webb investigation. She was already dialing. Ray? It's Jenny. I need you at Patricia Henley's apartment. Yes, the Webb case. We've got a living victim and evidence of ongoing crimes. While we waited for the detective, Jenny spread Patricia's documents across the table next to printouts of my recording with Dr. Rothfield. Her expression grew darker with each page. Sarah, this recording is incredible evidence, but you put yourself in serious danger. Dr. Chen's operation has connections we never fully mapped in the original investigation. What kind of connections? The kind that send threatening text messages. Jenny's phone buzzed and she frowned at the screen. That's odd. Ray isn't answering. He always answers when I call about Webb cases. A chill ran down my spine. How many people knew you were calling him? Just us, but Jenny's face went pale. Oh God. My office phone. If they'd been monitoring calls related to Webb. The building's front door slammed downstairs, followed by heavy footsteps on the stairs. Multiple sets of footsteps. Patricia grabbed my hand. The fire escape. Now. We'd barely made it to her bedroom window when someone started pounding on the apartment door. Not knocking, pounding. Burlington police. Open up. Jenny peered through the peephole and cursed under her breath. That's not Burlington PD, wrong uniforms. My phone buzzed with another text, last warning. Stop now or everyone you love gets hurt. As if to emphasize the point, my phone immediately rang. Emma's contact photo filled the screen, a picture of her laughing at last Christmas dinner, sitting next to our parents in the living room where I'd grown up believing I belonged there. Sarah, oh thank God. Emma's voice was shaky. These men came to Mom and Dad's house. They're asking about you. They say you've been harassing doctors and making false accusations. Emma, listen to me very carefully. Get Mom and Dad and go to a public place right now. Don't go home tonight. What's happening? Sarah, you're scaring me. Through Patricia's bedroom door, I could hear wood splintering. They were breaking down the door. Emma, I need you to do something for me. Go to my apartment, you have the spare key. In my bedroom closet, there's a shoebox behind my winter coats. Take everything in it and go to the police. The real police, not anyone who claims they're already working on this. Sarah. Tell them about Dr. Marcus Webb and Dr. Amanda Chin. Tell them about adoption fraud and stolen babies. Do you understand? The line went quiet except for Emma's ragged breathing. Are you saying you were stolen? Before I could answer, Patricia yanked me toward the fire escape. They're inside. I ended the call and followed Patricia through the window onto the narrow metal platform. Jenny was right behind us, clutching her briefcase full of documents. My car's in the alley, Jenny whispered as we climbed down. If we can reach it. Jenny Martinez? A man's voice called from below. Two figures emerged from the shadows beside Jenny's Honda Civic. Dr. Chen would like a word. We were trapped between fake police upstairs and Chen's people downstairs. Patricia pressed something into my hand, a small silver key. Storage unit 247 at Secure Space on Maple Street, she whispered. Everything I collected about Webb over the years. If something happens to me, get those documents to real authorities. Nothing's happening to you, I whispered back, but even as I said it, I could hear voices above us in the apartment, getting closer to the bedroom. That's when my phone rang again. This time it was my adoptive mother. Sarah, sweetheart, please come home. These men say you're in trouble, but if you just stop whatever you're doing, everything can go back to normal. Normal. As if learning my entire life was built on human trafficking could ever be normal again. Mom, I said quietly, did you know? When you paid $75,000 for me, did you know something was wrong? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Sarah. Her voice broke. We just wanted a baby so badly. And you were so perfect, so healthy. We told ourselves that if there had been anything wrong with the adoption, someone would have stopped it. 28 years of willful ignorance, summed up in one sentence. Below us, Chen's men were starting to climb the fire escape. Above us, the fake police had found the open window. Below us, Chen's men were climbing toward us. We were trapped on a fire escape 3 stories above an alley, with nowhere to go but up to the roof or down into their arms. The roof, Jenny whispered, pointing upward. There's a ladder to the next building. We climbed as quietly as possible, but the old fire escape groaned under our weight. By the time we reached the roof, I could hear voices from multiple directions. They'd surrounded the building. Patricia's apartment building connected to a row of similar structures, their rooftops forming an uneven path toward Maple Street. We ran across the first roof, jumped a 3-foot gap to the second building, and I was starting to think we might actually escape when my phone buzzed with a photo message. Emma, sitting in what looked like a van, her face tear-streaked and terrified. The message below read, "Your sister wants you to stop running." I stopped so abruptly that Patricia crashed into me. They have Emma, I said, showing them the photo. This is my fault. I should never have involved any of you. Sarah, listen to me, Jenny said, gripping my shoulders. This proves we're onto something big. They wouldn't take these risks if we weren't threatening their entire operation. My phone rang. Unknown number. Sarah Kelly? A woman's voice, calm and professional. This is Dr. Amanda Chin. I believe you've been looking for me. Where's my sister? Emma is safe, and she'll stay that way if you're reasonable. You've stumbled into something you don't understand, and you're going to get people hurt. We'd reached the edge of the connected buildings. Below us was Maple Street, and I could see the secure space storage facility 2 blocks away. Dr. Rothfield told me about Maria Santos, I said, buying time while we looked for a way down. Her 2-year-old son that you told her died from a heart defect. Chen's laugh was cold. James always was weak. Yes, I've continued Dr. Webb's work, but I perfected it. I only work with families who truly need help, on both sides. Mothers who can't care for their children, parents who desperately want them. By lying to everyone involved? By facilitating necessary transactions that the legal system makes impossibly complicated. Do you know how long legitimate adoptions take? How many children age out of foster care while lawyers shuffle paperwork? There was a fire escape on the building across the street, but it would mean jumping across a 15-foot gap between rooftops. Behind us, I could hear footsteps on the roof we'd just left. I'll make you a deal, Chen continued. Destroy whatever evidence you think you have, convince Patricia to stop her crusade, and everyone goes home safely. You can even return to your adoptive family and pretend none of this happened. What about the other mothers? What about Maria Santos? What about Emma? The photo on my phone refreshed. Now Emma was in what looked like a medical examination room, still crying. A man in scrubs stood behind her, holding something I couldn't quite make out. Patricia grabbed my arm. Sarah, we have to jump. But I was staring at the photo, something nagging at me. The room looked familiar, white walls, a specific pattern of cabinets, equipment I'd seen before. Dr. Chen, where are you holding my sister? Somewhere safe. For now. That's when I realized why the room looked familiar. In the background of Emma's photo was a distinctive red sign I'd seen earlier that day, Burlington Medical Center's emergency exit marker. You're at Burlington Medical, I said. That's your base of operations. The silence on the line told me I was right. Jenny, I whispered, call 911. Tell them there's a kidnapping at Burlington Medical Center, emergency wing. Tell them to look for Dr. Amanda Chin. Sarah, if you involve more police, Chin started. Some of the police are real, I cut her off. And I'm betting the FBI would be very interested in an active human trafficking ring. I hung up and looked at Patricia and Jenny. We jump on 3. Sarah, Patricia said, before we do this, I need you to know, whatever happens next, I'm proud of you. You're exactly the daughter I dreamed you'd be. 1, I said, backing up for a running start. 2. Behind us, men were shouting, getting closer. 3. We made the jump. Barely. Patricia landed hard on the opposite roof, her ankle twisting as she rolled. Jenny's briefcase scattered documents across the gravel rooftop, and I scraped my palms raw catching myself. But we were across, and Chen's men were still on the other building, shouting into radios. Can you walk? I asked Patricia, helping her to her feet. She tested her weight and winced. I'll manage. We limped toward the fire escape as sirens wailed in the distance, whether coming for us or heading to Burlington Medical, I couldn't tell. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from Chen, my parents, and numbers I didn't recognize. The storage facility was darker than I'd expected. Patricia's key opened unit 247, revealing boxes stacked floor to ceiling. Even in the dim light from my phone's flashlight, I could see the scope of her obsession. 28 years of investigation materials, newspaper clippings, medical records, financial documents, photographs of families who'd been through Webb's clinic. I never stopped looking, Patricia said, pulling out a thick folder labeled active cases post-Webb. Even after he died, I kept tracking the families, the associates, anyone connected to the clinic. Jenny was already photographing documents with her phone. Sarah, look at this. Financial records showing payments from Burlington Medical to something called Family Futures LLC every month for the past 6 years. That's Chen's operation, I realized. She's been using Burlington Medical's resources. My phone rang. This time it was Detective Hoffman, the real one, according to the caller ID that matched Jenny's contacts. Miss Kelly? This is Detective Ray Hoffman, Burlington PD. I understand you have information about Dr. Amanda Chen. Please tell me you found my sister. We're searching Burlington Medical now. But I need you to come in. There are things about this case you need to know. I looked at Patricia sorting through her boxes of evidence, and Jenny photographing everything she could. Detective, how do I know you're really police and not working with Chen? Because 30 minutes ago, we arrested Dr. James Rothfield attempting to flee the state with $200,000 in cash and falsified identification. Your recording prompted a raid on his office, where we found enough evidence to connect him to at least 60 cases of adoption fraud. 60 cases. My head spun thinking about how many families were affected, how many mothers grieving children who were alive, how many adoptive parents who had no idea their children had been stolen. There's something else, Hoffman continued. We found Emma. She's safe, but she's asking for you. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down on one of Patricia's boxes. Where was she? Chen's clinic, but not as a hostage. Sarah, your sister came to Burlington Medical voluntarily. She's pregnant. The storage unit suddenly felt too small. What? Emma says she's been seeing Dr. Chen for prenatal care for 3 months. She had no idea about Chen's other activities. When Chen realized Emma was your sister, she panicked and convinced Emma she was protecting her from dangerous people who wanted to hurt her family. Jenny and Patricia were staring at me. I put the call on speaker. Emma thought she was hiding from people who wanted to harm her baby, Hoffman continued. Chen told her you'd gotten involved with dangerous criminals and that the safest place was her clinic. So the photos of Emma crying. She was scared for you, not of us. Chen convinced her that you were in serious danger and that cooperating was the only way to keep everyone safe. I closed my eyes, trying to process this new layer of manipulation. Chen hadn't just trafficked babies, she'd weaponized family bonds, turning Emma's pregnancy and love for me into tools of control. Detective, where is Dr. Chen now? That's what we need to discuss in person. Sarah, Chen didn't just run when we raided her clinic. She took something with her. What? Patient files. Specifically, files containing the real names and locations of children who were adopted through her network over the past 6 years. At least 15 families. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Chen hadn't just destroyed evidence, she'd taken the only key to reuniting stolen children with their birth families. Without those files, kids like Maria Santos' son might never be found. Patricia grabbed my arm. Sarah, she's going to destroy those records rather than let them be used against her. Or worse, Jenny added grimly. She could sell that information to the highest bidder. Birth families desperate enough to pay anything, adoptive families willing to pay to keep secrets buried. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, parking garage, level B2, Burlington Medical. Come alone if you want the files. You have 1 hour. Detective Hoffman's voice crackled through the speaker. Sarah, do not even think about it. This is exactly what we expected her to do. But I was already standing up, Patricia's storage unit key clutched in my fist. Somewhere out there, Maria Santos was grieving a son who was alive. 15 other mothers were living the same nightmare Patricia had endured for 28 years. And Dr. Amanda Chen was the only person who could end their suffering. The parking garage at Burlington Medical felt like descending into hell. Each level down, the fluorescent lights got dimmer, the shadows deeper. By the time I reached B2, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip my phone. Detective Hoffman had insisted on wiring me with audio equipment, but the signal was spotty this far underground. Jenny and Patricia were in a surveillance van 3 blocks away, and I'd never felt more alone in my life. Dr. Amanda Chen was waiting by a silver BMW, exactly as composed as she'd sounded on the phone. Mid-40s, perfectly styled blonde hair, wearing scrubs that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She looked like every trusted doctor who'd ever delivered good news to expectant parents. Sarah Kelly, she said, like we were meeting for coffee. You're much more persistent than I anticipated. Where are the files? She gestured to a medical bag on the hood of her car. 15 families, complete records. Birth mothers, adoptive families, children's current locations and identities. Everything needed to destroy dozens of lives. Or to reunite families that should never have been separated. Chen's laugh was sharp. Do you really think Maria Santos wants her son back now? He's 2 years old, bonded with the only parents he's ever known. Ripping him away would be traumatic for everyone involved. I thought of Patricia, 28 years of grief etched into the lines around her eyes. That should have been her choice to make. Should have, could have. Chen shrugged. Ideal in reality. Maria Santos was 19, undocumented, working 3 jobs to afford prenatal care. The Richardsons were 42, financially stable, desperately wanting a child after 6 miscarriages. I created a solution that benefited everyone. By lying to everyone involved. By facilitating necessary outcomes that bureaucratic adoption systems make impossible. Chen's voice hardened. Do you know how many children age out of foster care every year while lawyers argue over paperwork? How many loving families are denied adoptions because they're too old, or not wealthy enough, or don't check the right demographic boxes? My earpiece crackled with Detective Hoffman's voice. Keep her talking. We're tracking her phone signal. What about Dr. Webb? I asked. Was facilitating necessary outcomes his justification too? Marcus was a visionary who lost sight of the bigger picture. He got greedy, sloppy. I've refined his methods, made them sustainable and selective. Chen opened the medical bag, revealing thick manila folders. Even from 10 feet away, I could see children's photos paperclipped to legal documents. I'm going to make you an offer, Sarah. Take these files. Reunite whoever you want. But understand that you'll be destroying lives in the process. The Richardsons have no idea their son wasn't legally adopted. Maria Santos has built a new life, remarried, has a daughter now. Do you really want to tear both families apart to satisfy your need for justice? She was right, and that's what made it horrifying. There were no clean solutions here, no way to undo 28 years of lies without creating new traumas. What do you want in return? My freedom. These are copies, I have backups secured elsewhere. Let me disappear quietly, and you can play God with these families' lives to your heart's content. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a photo of Patricia and Jenny in what was supposed to be a secure surveillance van, taken from close range. The message read, your birth mother is as naive as she was at 19. Some people never learn. Chin smiled at my expression. Did you really think I only had one team watching you? Sarah, I've been perfecting this operation for 6 years. Every contingency has been planned for. The parking garage suddenly felt like a trap closing around me. Chen had anticipated everything, the police involvement, the surveillance, even Patricia and Jenny's location. However, she continued, I am curious about one thing. How does it feel, knowing your adoptive parents suspected the truth for 28 years and chose their comfort over your birth mother's grief? The question hung in the air like poison. How did it feel, knowing my parents had chosen willful ignorance over truth? They loved me, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, they felt hollow. Love built on lies isn't love, Sarah. It's possession. Chen checked her watch. You have 45 minutes to decide. Take the files and destroy multiple families, or walk away and let sleeping dogs lie. My earpiece crackled again, but this time it wasn't Detective Hoffman. It was Emma's voice, shaky but determined. Sarah? If you can hear me, I need you to know something about Mom and Dad. Chen frowned, clearly not expecting this development. Emma continued, I found the papers you told me to look for. But there's more. Dad kept a safety deposit box, the key was in Mom's jewelry case. Ray, Detective Hoffman, he helped me open it legally. My hands clenched into fists. What was in it, Em? Correspondence with Dr. Webb dating back to 1994. Sarah, they knew. They knew you were stolen before they even paid for you. The parking garage tilted sideways. Chen was watching my face with clinical interest, like I was a specimen under a microscope. There are letters, Emma's voice continued through the static. Mom wrote to Webb asking about the birth mother situation and whether she might cause problems later. Dad's handwriting on bank statements, calculating whether $75,000 was worth the risk of exposure. 28 years of birthday cakes and bedtime stories and proud moments at graduations, all of it tainted by premeditation. They hadn't been naive victims caught in Webb's scheme. They'd been willing participants who knew exactly what they were buying. Sarah? Chen's voice seemed to come from very far away. You look pale. There's more, Emma said through my earpiece. Financial records showing Dad made payments to someone called Legal Solutions LLC every year until 2018, the year Webb died. $15,000 annually for 23 years. Hush money. My parents had been paying Webb to keep quiet for over 2 decades. Chen was saying something, but I couldn't focus on her words. The math was staggering, $345,000 in silence payments, on top of the original $75,000 purchase price. Nearly $500,000 to keep Patricia believing her daughter was dead. Sarah, can you hear me? Detective Hoffman's voice cut through Emma's transmission. We have a problem. The van with Patricia and Jenny, it's gone. GPS went dark 3 minutes ago. The medical bag on Chen's car had suddenly looked like bait I'd been too stupid to recognize. Where are they? I demanded, stepping toward Chen. She held up her phone, showing a live video feed of Patricia and Jenny in what looked like a medical examination room. Both were conscious but zip-tied to chairs, Jenny's briefcase of evidence nowhere to be seen. Insurance policy, Chen said calmly. In case you decided to be heroic instead of practical. You said you weren't like Webb. That you only helped families who needed it. I lied. Her mask of professional compassion finally slipped, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Marcus was weak because he cared about justifications. I care about results and profit margins. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from Patricia's number, storage unit 247 has been cleaned out. 28 years of evidence, gone. Some doors should stay closed. AC. Chen had played us from the beginning. While we'd been focused on the files in her medical bag, her people had been systematically destroying every piece of evidence Patricia had collected. The Netflix documentary was just the tip of the iceberg, but now the rest of the iceberg was melting away in Chen's hands. Counteroffer, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. I'll take your files and disappear quietly. But first, you're going to make a phone call to Maria Santos. Absolutely not. Then I guess we'll see how Patricia and Jenny look in the morning news when their bodies are found in your clinic. Chen's smile returned, but it was different now, predatory instead of professional. You're bluffing. You're not a killer, Sarah. You're a kindergarten teacher who stumbled into something too big for her. 5th grade, I corrected. And you're right. I'm not a killer. But I am someone who just learned that her entire family has been lying to her for 28 years while a woman grieved unnecessarily. I'm someone who has nothing left to lose. That's when the lights in the parking garage went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Chen's confident demeanor cracked as she spun around, looking for the source of the power outage. That wasn't part of your plan, was it? I said, backing toward the stairwell. My earpiece crackled with Detective Hoffman's voice. Sarah, we've got teams moving in from all levels. The power cut was intentional. Chen's people can't use the electronic locks to secure their exit routes. But Chen was already moving, grabbing the medical bag and heading for her BMW. Your birth mother has about 10 minutes of air left in the room where she's being held, she called over her shoulder. The ventilation system runs on main power. My blood went cold. You're suffocating them? Motivating you. She was at her car now, engine starting. Parking level B4, room 12. But Sarah? The elevators won't work without power, and it's a long way down. Her headlights cut through the red emergency lighting as she sped toward the exit ramp. I could hear tires squealing on the levels above, police vehicles trying to intercept her. I ran for the stairwell, taking the concrete steps 3 at a time. B3, B4, the air was getting thicker, more oppressive. By the time I reached the bottom level, my lungs were burning and my legs felt like rubber. Level B4 was a maze of storage rooms and mechanical equipment. Room 12 was at the far end, and I could hear muffled sounds coming from behind a heavy metal door. No handle on the outside, it was controlled electronically. Patricia. Jenny. I pounded on the door. Can you hear me? Patricia's voice came through faintly. Sarah? The air, it's getting hard to breathe. I looked around frantically for something to break down the door, settling on a fire extinguisher mounted to the wall. The metal door dented but didn't give way. Again. Jenny says there's a manual override, Patricia called, her voice weaker now. Maintenance panel, next to the room. I found a gray electrical box mounted on the wall, locked with a simple padlock. The fire extinguisher made quick work of it, revealing a maze of switches and circuit breakers. None of them were labeled. My phone rang. Chen. Having trouble? She asked, and I could hear traffic noise in the background. She was already out of the garage. Tell me which switch. Transfer $5 million to account number 847291556, Cayman National Bank. Then we'll talk. I don't have $5 million. I'm a teacher. But your adoptive parents do. David Kelly's architectural firm is worth approximately $12 million. And after 28 years of paying hush money, I think they owe you some honesty about their finances too. Through the door, I could hear Jenny coughing violently. There's another option, Chen continued. In the medical bag you let me drive away with, there was a specific file. Maria Santos and her son Diego. She's been working as a night janitor at Burlington Medical for 6 months, trying to save money to visit his grave on his 2nd birthday next week. My hands froze on the electrical panel. She's been working in your hospital? Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday night. Cleaning the maternity ward where I told her he died. I see her sometimes, crying in the supply closets. Quite tragic, really. The cruelty was breathtaking. Chen had been forcing Maria to work in the very place where her son had been stolen, surrounded by the joy of other new mothers. What do you want? Call her. Tell her Diego is alive. Give her the choice you've been so passionate about. I pulled Maria Santos's number from my phone, my finger hovering over the call button while Patricia and Jenny suffocated 10 feet away. But Sarah, Chen's voice turned silky, if you make that call, Patricia dies. The manual override requires a code I'll only give you after Maria is told the truth. You can save your birth mother, or you can save Maria's sanity. Choose. The choice Chen wanted me to make was impossible, but as I stared at the electrical panel, I realized she'd made a crucial mistake. She thought like a sociopath, assuming everyone else would prioritize individual survival over collective action. Chen, I said, keeping my voice steady as I flipped every switch in the panel at once, you forgot something important about kindergarten teachers. 5th grade, came Patricia's weak voice through the door as ventilation hummed back to life. We don't abandon our students. The electronic lock clicked open and I yanked the door wide. Patricia and Jenny stumbled out, gasping in the fresher air of the hallway. Chen's laugh through the phone was genuinely amused. Clever. But you've only delayed the inevitable. Maria Santos is upstairs right now, cleaning the maternity ward. Room 4A specifically, the same room where I told her Diego died 2 years ago. She'll be there for another hour. While Jenny and Patricia caught their breath, I was already moving toward the stairwell. Patricia, can you walk? Yes, but Sarah, she grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Chen's right about one thing. If we tell Maria the truth tonight, while she's in that room, the shock could. Could what? Be worse than spending the next year grieving at an empty grave? I was already climbing the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. My earpiece crackled with Detective Hoffman's voice. Sarah, Chen's vehicle was spotted heading toward the interstate, but we lost her at the junction. We need you and the witnesses out of that building now. Negative, I replied, knowing he could hear me. There's someone else here who deserves to know the truth. Room 4A was at the end of a long corridor lined with photographs of newborn babies and their families. The happy faces staring down at me felt like accusations. How many of those families had secrets they didn't know about? I found Maria Santos exactly where Chen had said she'd be, mopping the floor of a recovery room with methodical, heartbroken precision. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 21 now, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. When she looked up and saw me standing in the doorway, her expression was polite but wary. I'm sorry, visiting hours are over, she said in accented English. Maria, my name is Sarah. I called you yesterday about your son. Her face went through a series of emotions, confusion, recognition, then a kind of protective fear. I don't want to talk about Diego. Please leave me alone. He's alive, Maria. Your son is alive. The mop clattered to the floor, spreading sudsy water across the linoleum. Maria's legs gave out and she sank into the visitor chair beside the hospital bed, the same type of bed where she would have held Diego for those brief moments before Chen stole him away. That's not possible, she whispered, but her eyes were searching my face desperately. Dr. Chen showed me, she said his heart. Dr. Chen lied to you. Just like she lied to dozens of other mothers. I knelt beside her chair, pulling up the photo Detective Hoffman had sent me 20 minutes earlier, a picture from the raid on Chen's clinic, showing a wall covered with adoption files. Diego was sold to a family called the Richardsons. He's 2 years old, healthy, and he's been living in Westfield this whole time. Maria's hand shook as she stared at the photo on my phone. Westfield that's only 30 minutes from here. Maria, I need you to understand something else. The family that has Diego, they don't know he was stolen. They think they adopted him legally. They love him. She was crying now, but her voice was steady. I've been working here for 6 months. Cleaning the room where I thought my baby died. She made me, she watched me cry and she knew. Footsteps in the hallway made us both look up. Patricia appeared in the doorway, still pale but determined, with Jenny right behind her. Maria, Patricia said gently, my name is Patricia Henley. 28 years ago, Dr. Marcus Webb told me my daughter died in delivery. I found out 3 days ago that she's been alive this whole time. She gestured to me. Sarah is my daughter. Maria looked between us, understanding dawning on her face. How many mothers? At least 60 that we know of, Jenny answered, setting her briefcase on the hospital bed. Maria, we're going to help you get Diego back, but we need your help to stop this from happening to other families. What do you need me to do? That's when my phone buzzed with a message that made my blood run cold. It was a photo of a young pregnant woman I didn't recognize, sitting in what looked like Chen's clinic. The message read, patient scheduled for emergency C-section at midnight. Baby has a rare blood disorder and probably won't survive the night. Unless, of course, you'd like to verify that diagnosis independently? I showed the message to the others. Jenny checked her watch, 11:23 p.m. She's going to do it again, Maria said, standing up so fast her cleaning cart rattled. Tonight. Right now. My earpiece crackled. Sarah, this is Hoffman. We just intercepted communications about an emergency surgery at Chen's private clinic. We're mobilizing units now, but we need someone on the inside to confirm the situation. The clinic is 20 minutes away, Patricia said. But Sarah, if we're wrong about this. If we're right about this, I cut her off. Tomorrow morning another mother is going to wake up thinking her baby is dead while Chen sells that child to the highest bidder. Maria was already grabbing her purse. I know the clinic. I applied for a job there last month, before I found work here. I still have the key card they gave me for the interview. For women who'd been strangers 72 hours ago, united by one doctor's systematic cruelty. As we headed for the elevator, I realized Chen had made another miscalculation. She'd assumed that breaking us apart would make us weaker. Instead, it had made us absolutely ruthless. Chen's private clinic looked nothing like the sterile medical facility I'd expected. Hidden in a converted warehouse on the outskirts of Burlington, it resembled an upscale spa more than a hospital, all soft lighting and expensive furniture designed to make wealthy clients feel comfortable about their morally questionable transactions. Maria's key card still worked, which meant Chen was either incredibly arrogant or this was another trap. At 11:47 p.m., we slipped through the employee entrance into a hallway lined with photographs of happy families holding newborns. The irony was sickening. Surgery suite is on the second floor, Maria whispered, leading us toward a service elevator. I memorized the layout during my interview. Chen gave me a full tour, probably sizing me up as a potential victim. Through my earpiece, Detective Hoffman's voice was tense. We're 3 minutes out, but the building's security system is more sophisticated than we anticipated. You need to get eyes on that surgery and confirm what's happening. The elevator opened onto a corridor that looked like something from a luxury hotel. Thick carpeting muffled our footsteps as we crept toward the double doors marked Surgical Suite A. Through the small windows, we could see Chen in full surgical gear, speaking to someone outside our line of sight. There, Jenny pointed to a young woman on the operating table, conscious but clearly sedated. Hispanic, maybe 19, with tears streaming down her face despite whatever drugs they'd given her. Patricia pressed her face to the window. She's terrified. Look at her eyes, she knows something's wrong. I pulled out my phone and started recording through the window. On the video, Chen's voice was clearly audible. Isabella, the baby's heart rate is dropping dangerously. We need to deliver immediately or we'll lose her. Her? Isabella's voice was slurred but desperate. You said I was having a boy. Chen's pause was barely noticeable. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yes, him. We need to deliver him now. Even sedated and scared, Isabella had caught the inconsistency. My recording captured Chen's moment of uncertainty, proof that she was improvising lies in real time. Jenny, I whispered, can you see any monitors showing the baby's vital signs? Jenny pressed against the window at a different angle. There aren't any fetal monitors connected. Sarah, if there was really a medical emergency, this room would be full of equipment tracking the baby's condition. My earpiece crackled. Hoffman here. We're in position, but Sarah, you need to know something. We found Chen's BMW abandoned 6 blocks away. She's not planning to leave through normal exits. Before I could respond, the surgical suite door opened and a nurse emerged, except I recognized her from the parking garage. One of Chen's people, not a real medical professional. Dr. Chen, the fake nurse, called back into the room. The adoptive family just arrived. They're asking about the baby's blood type for their medical records. B negative, Chen replied without checking any charts. Tell them everything is progressing normally. Isabella tried to sit up on the table. Wait, what adoptive family? You said my baby was sick, that he might not survive. Isabella, please stay calm. The sedation can cause confusion. Chen's voice remained professional, but I could see her hands moving faster, preparing surgical instruments. Maria grabbed my arm. She's going to start cutting soon. Once that baby is delivered, Isabella won't have any legal claim even if we prove fraud later. Can we get in there? Service entrance through the supply room, Maria said, pointing to a door 20 feet down the hallway. But Sarah, if we interrupt an actual surgery. That's not an actual surgery, Patricia said grimly. That's a kidnapping in progress. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. 2nd floor fire escape. Come alone. We finish this now. AC. Chen knew we were here. Somehow, despite our careful approach, she'd been tracking us all along. The fire escape was a trap, but Isabella had maybe 5 minutes before Chen started cutting. I looked at Patricia, Jenny, and Maria, 3 women who'd already risked everything to stop this monster. I'm going to the fire escape, I said. You three get into that surgery room and document everything. When the police arrive, they'll need witnesses and video evidence. Sarah, no. Patricia gripped my arm. We stick together. If I don't go, Jen might have an escape route we don't know about. She's been planning contingencies all night. I handed Jenny my phone, still recording. Stream this to Detective Hoffman. Make sure Isabella and her baby are protected. The fire escape was on the building's east side, accessible through an emergency exit that should have triggered alarms but didn't. Chen had disabled the building's safety systems, another sign this wasn't a legitimate medical facility. Dr. Amanda Chen was waiting on the metal platform, no longer wearing surgical scrubs. Instead, she was dressed in dark clothing with a backpack that probably contained falsified documents and enough cash to disappear permanently. 47 seconds, she said, checking her watch. That's how long it took you to choose the pregnant teenager over your own safety. Admirable and predictable. Isabella's baby isn't sick, is it? Perfectly healthy 8-pound boy. The adoptive parents, the Washingtons, had been waiting 18 months and paid $150,000 up front. They're downstairs right now, thinking they're about to meet their son born from a selfless teenager who chose adoption. The casual cruelty in her voice made my stomach turn. What happens when Isabella asks to hold her baby? Complications during delivery. Very tragic. Chen's smile was cold. The Washingtons get their son, Isabella gets closure, and everyone moves on with their lives. Except Isabella will spend the rest of her life grieving a child who's alive. Isabella is 19, undocumented, and has no support system. The Washingtons are 45, financially stable, and desperate for a family. Simple mathematics. Through the window behind Chen, I could see into the surgery room where Maria was now standing beside Isabella's bed, holding her hand while Jenny filmed everything. Patricia was arguing with the fake nurse, buying time. Chen, it's over. The FBI is involved now, your financial records have been seized, and you got about 60 seconds before this building is surrounded. Which is why we're not staying. Chen pulled out a tablet, showing me a live feed from inside the surgery room. I've got remote access to the building's systems, including the ventilation. Remember how that worked out for Patricia earlier? My blood went cold. You're bluffing. Room temperature is currently 72 degrees. Oxygen level is 21%. Her finger hovered over the tablet screen. But these old warehouse conversions have such unreliable HVAC systems. Gas leaks can happen so suddenly. She wasn't bluffing. Chen had turned the entire building into a weapon. What do you want? My freedom and your silence. Walk away now, let me finish with Isabella, and everyone goes home safely. Try to be a hero, and that surgery room becomes a gas chamber. Through the window, I could see Isabella was fully awake now, refusing the anesthesia mask and demanding answers about her baby's condition. Maria was translating questions the fake nurse couldn't answer, and Jenny's camera was capturing everything. My earpiece crackled with Detective Hoffman's voice. Sarah, we've got a problem. The building's gas lines show massive pressure irregularities. We think Chen's rigged the whole place. Chen smiled, having overheard the transmission. Dr. Marcus Webb was a businessman who got sloppy. I'm an engineer who happened to go to medical school. I don't leave loose ends. That's when the lights went out again, and I realized we were all about to discover exactly how far Chen was willing to go to protect her operation. The emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in that familiar red glow, but this time I was ready for it. While Chen had been monologuing about gas leaks and pressure systems, I'd been counting windows and calculating distances. You made one mistake, I said, backing toward the fire escape railing. Really? What's that? You told me you were an engineer. I pulled the fire alarm I'd palmed from the hallway wall, triggering every safety system in the building simultaneously. Engineers build redundancies. But they also build manual overrides. Sprinklers erupted throughout the clinic, and more importantly, emergency ventilation fans roared to life, systems that operated independently of Chen's tablet controls. Her carefully calculated gas leak became impossible as fresh air flooded the building. Chen lunged for me, but I was already moving. The fire escape connected to the adjacent building's roof, and I'd spent 3 days learning that sometimes you have to jump. This time, I stuck the landing. Chen followed, her engineering precision no match for 3 days of adrenaline-fueled decision-making. She made the jump, but barely, her tablet spinning away into the darkness below. It's over, I called as sirens surrounded the building. Isabella's safe, your files are seized, and every family you destroyed is going to get justice. You have no idea what you've done, Chen snarled, but her voice had lost its clinical calm. Those families were happy. You're going to rip apart dozens of lives for your moral crusade. No, said a voice from behind us. Detective Hoffman emerged from the roof access door, followed by federal agents I didn't recognize. Dr. Chen, you're under arrest for human trafficking, medical fraud, and conspiracy. As they cuffed Chen, she looked at me one last time. Isabella's baby is being born right now. The Washingtons are still downstairs, waiting. What exactly do you think happens next? That's what I learned over the following months. Stopping a monster doesn't instantly heal the wounds they've created. Isabella did give birth to a healthy boy that night. She named him Gabriel and chose to parent him herself, supported by victim services funding and Patricia's unexpected offer of help. The Washingtons, devastated but understanding, became advocates for adoption reform legislation. Maria Santos was reunited with Diego 3 weeks later. The Richardsons, horrified to learn the truth, worked with social services to arrange gradual contact visits that prioritized Diego's emotional well-being. It was messy and complicated and sometimes heartbreaking, but it was honest. 63 families total were affected by Webb and Chen's network. Not all of the reunions were successful. Some adoptive families couldn't handle the truth. Some birth mothers had built new lives they couldn't reconcile with their stolen children. But every one of them finally had the choice that had been taken from them. Patricia and I see each other every Sunday now. We're building something new, not trying to recover 28 lost years, but creating whatever comes next. She's teaching me to garden, and I'm teaching her to grade 5th grade math homework. My adoptive parents, that's still complicated. Dad's architectural firm is liquidating assets to pay restitution to victims' families. Mom started therapy. Emma had her baby, a daughter she named Hope, and we're all figuring out how to be family when the foundation was cracked from the beginning. Dr. Chen was sentenced to 37 years in federal prison. Dr. Rothfield got 15 years and lost his medical license. And me? I'm still a 5th grade teacher. But now when my students ask hard questions about fairness and truth, I tell them something different than I used to. Sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing you'll ever do. But that's exactly why it matters. Some doors should be opened, no matter how much it hurts.